And the maybe box is another really fun one. If you can't decide on something, put it in a maybe box. Commit to a date, like maybe a month out, 2 months out. If you can remember what was in there, then you can have it. But if you can't peek inside. If you can't remember, then you didn't really want it.
Did you hear that? That one is brilliant. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another On the Spot. Of course, today you visited my spot. It'd be a little hard to go into one of your clients' homes. So this is Stephanie with Solutions That Stick?
Yes.
Okay. And so she is a professional organizer. So first of all, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
I help people who have too much stuff and have a hard time deciding what to keep and what not. So I help people in making the decisions on what they should keep, what they should do with the stuff that they don't want to keep, and help them get rid of it.
Okay, and she actually came and did some work with me. She helped my little Trinity hoarder with her room. And then she also helped me figure out, my thing was not so much that I have too much stuff. Mm-hmm. My thing was I have small spaces, like a little pantry and a little cupboard, and I was trying to fit a lot into a small space. And so that was really useful.
Yeah, that's another big one, just finding solutions to
whatever. Like, yep, yeah, okay. So tell me, the question I ask everybody is, what have you learned? What are patterns that you've seen over time? How many years have you been doing the organizing work?
I'm in my 8th year doing it professionally, but I was born this way and I've been doing it my whole life. I didn't know it was a job. And I always did it, at my friends' houses and everywhere I went.
Oh, yes, right? So it's just who you are, basically.
Back then, I had an organizational compulsive disorder. That's what I called it. How negative is that? And now I'm a professional organizer.
Exactly. Now you're making a living.
Yeah, now I get to do it, and it's not weird.
So what, in this 8 years, and even before that, as you were doing this, what have been the things that you've noticed, the patterns that you've noticed, especially what are some things that could help, the Coffee with Dawni viewers in their own lives? So what have you noticed?
Well, the biggest thing, the most obvious one is I went into this, my father's a hoarder and his grandfather's a hoarder, and I have some of those tendencies. So I really like my stuff and I have a hard time making decisions on my own stuff. So I went into this thinking I was going to be that organizer that didn't make you get rid of your stuff. I wanted to be that nice one. And in reality, it is the focus of what I do, because I have learned the value in less. When people do reduce the stuff they have, they love the stuff they keep more. They can find the stuff that they have and use it. Our stuff does take energy from us. So everything we have in our house that we're not actually using sucks energy from
I've
you.
So noticed this.
And so if there's something you use, and you just have to decide, is it taking more energy than it's giving? So if there's something on your desk, especially in an area that, you're trying to be productive and get work done, if there's something on your desk that you use all the time, it's giving you energy because you're using it. But if there's something on your desk that you're not using, it's probably sucking energy from you and slowing you down.
So it's almost like some things can be an investment, either a good investment or a bad investment, right? Oh, here's this pen that I love and I use every day to write with. That's a good investment. Here's this knick-knack that my ex-husband gave me that reminds me of negativity every day, but I feel guilty getting rid of it. Bad investment.
And lots of times it's a subconscious feeling too. They don't even know, because I'll ask someone, what about this? Do you want this? And they're like, yeah. And their face is like, no. I'm like, well, your mouth said yeah and your face said no. What's behind that? And you have to drag it out, and they almost don't know that thing is sucking energy from them. And
I do weird. That same thing in my work, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll be like, so how's your marriage? And they're like, well, it's good. And I'm like, okay,
your face is not saying.
Your voice and your face are not saying that's good. So let's talk about that. So that's funny. Almost every person that I interview for the On the Spot, I can see the similarities that line up in what we do. Mm-hmm. So I love looking for those. So when you're going in and people, would you say most people have too much stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. Organizers are all booked. There's far more work out there than there are organizers. And that's because we all have a lot of stuff. And we all have a lot of like to-do stuff, I call. Like, I'm going to do this with
Projects.
it. Or, yeah. Not just that, but sometimes it's, I got to give that back to that person. Those are the hardest clients. I'm not hard for me, but hard for them is the ones that want to find a home for everything and they don't want to just donate it and send it to the DI, you know? Oh, well, I'm going to give that to so-and-so and this to so-and-so. And now they have this big, long list of to-dos that are subconsciously stressing them out. And like, oh gosh, imagine the weight that would be lifted if you just let's load it all in my truck and take it to the DI.
Right? So this is really interesting because you're talking about a physical thing that you do. Mm-hmm. As an organizer, you come in and help with what is, at least supposedly and on the surface, a physical issue, a tangible issue. Mm-hmm. And yet when you dig deeper...
I know, I didn't know I was going to become a therapist with no schooling for it. It's like, I really enjoy that part of it too, because I'm all about production. So let's go ahead and talk about your stuff. But
there's an emotional component, mm-hmm. right? There's even a mental component behind all of this.
It's much, much deeper than you realize until you get in there.
Well, no wonder we need help with it, though.
Uh-huh.
I noticed this
I need help with it, too.
Right?
I can't do my own.
Exactly. You're too close to your own stuff. So I noticed when I was moving... The last time I moved, I was having the hardest time figuring out, because I was moving into a much smaller space. I was having the hardest time figuring out what meant something to me, what was useful to me, and what I was keeping out of obligation.
Mm-hmm, that's really common.
There was so much obligation there, and I ended up having a dear friend. I'm going to give you a shout out, Lexi, because she's one of my Coffee with Dawni subscribers. And I basically just asked her to come sit with me while I packed and let me talk through.
It's so true.
Some of the things, and it was incredibly useful to have that support and just an unbiased person there.
Yeah. That's big. Is when I go into someone's home, I don't really care whether you get rid of it or not. I'm encouraging you to for your success. Where like the husbands and the aunts are like the people who they've just constantly heard it from, people who make statements. I like to ask questions rather than statements, you know, like, well, do you like it? Or does it smell to you? Rather than that thing smells, get rid of it.
Right,
know?
Right. So then, because you don't want to come from judgment because then they get defensive. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that with your clients, it's difficult for them? Is there shame? Is there guilt about then you coming in?
It's really hard in the beginning. I think right away when they meet me, they're like, relieved. Because first of all, I show up in exercise clothes and, you know, I don't wear makeup and stuff. I'm like, oh, well, it's not what I was expecting, you know. And I come in with, you know, a toolbox ready to work. And so I think it's a relief that they're not going to get that same level of shame and guilt and stuff. Because lots of people do judge. I hear my clients say neighbors walk in and talk about their stuff like, oh, and say really judgmental things to their face. And that slows down progress.
I was going to say, I would think that would add to the problem.
When you have a husband who's really putting a lot of shame on someone, they're blocked. You can't progress like that. It's not motivating.
Okay, so this is a really good point. What do you suggest? So I actually would love two suggestions. First of all, I'd love, what do you suggest if you are living with either a hoarder or someone who's just very messy or very unorganized, asking for myself, because I'm a quite orderly person. Mm-hmm. And Stephanie and I are both Geminis. Yeah. We have a lot in common.
Are Geminis orderly?
A lot. So it's one or the other.
Okay.
So it's either they're very almost always either they're very messy or they're very organized.
Yes.
And Geminis do like to feel like we have control over our surroundings. So I'm a very orderly person, but I have this lovely little 10-year-old who is unbelievably messy, and I know that I have inadvertently shamed her. So what do you suggest for people who live with someone who is very messy, unorganized, and or a hoarder? How do you suggest they approach it?
It's hard to sum that up, but first of all, you really have to come from a place. You're going to understand this because you can read people like I can. So you have to change your view of it, because if you're saying all the right things and thinking all the wrong things, it's not going to work. You really have to let it be their thing. It's usually about control. So if she feels like you want her room clean, she's going to be less likely to clean her room. But if she feels like you don't care and you're giving her advice like, well, would you like questions again?
Okay.
Not statements.
Okay.
Questions,
okay.
questions, and patience. Time, especially if you're dealing with a hoarder. Suggest it every month for 2 years until they get help. It might take that long. But if every time you talk about it, you're asking questions, what kind of room would you like? How would it feel to have this room? How does this room make you feel? And it's always in their control. And you're not like pushing yourself on them.
Okay. I really, really like that. And then what would you say for anyone watching this who it's them? They're the ones that are really struggling with it. What would you say?
Well, I'd say accept help first off. It doesn't mean that you have to get the weekly help. Sometimes it's just that motivation. And there's a lot of people that probably can do it on their own. But go ahead and get that motivation and that momentum started with help from someone else. And then notice the shame and the guilt that maybe someone else is putting on you and try to release that, because lots of times that will block you from getting help.
And what about when it's their shame and guilt that are blocking them?
I always say go to my Facebook page and look at some before and afters so that you can see that you're not alone. Lots of times when you visit other people, they seem perfect. They knew you were coming. People aren't as perfect as you think.
Yes.
You're not alone. Most houses, so many of my clients, I'll talk to them on the phone, and I try not to evaluate the situation on the phone at all, because people are not generally honest about or maybe they don't even know. It's not that they're being dishonest, but they'll sound like their house is such a disaster. You get there, I'm like, man, you are organized. This is pretty good. And they don't even realize it because they put so much shame on
maybe
themselves.
we don't even have a clear vision of what, and I think this is the case in a lot of areas of life, not just with our homes being messy, but I think a lot of times we're just so close to our own stuff that we don't see it clearly.
Don't at all.
I highly recommend getting the help. If you're in the Salt Lake area, we'll put up Stephanie's information so you can hire her.
I live in Kaysville, so I go all the way from Ogden to Salt Lake.
Okay, so Ogden
right in the middle.
Okay, Ogden to Salt Lake. But and if they live somewhere else, is there a certain way to look up a professional organizer?
You can go to utahprofessionalorganizers.com.
Okay.
And there's a list of 32 of us now.
Do other states have that for my people who are out of state?
Yes, there's findanorganizer.com too, and that's like
findanorganizer.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Find my organizer, I believe it is. Sorry.
Okay. So, and we'll have Gideon put that up on the screen at the end. But I think, or even if, because some of the people are going to be like, I can't afford that, get a friend. Ask a friend.
Or pretend. So what I do often, because I don't like to get, actually I haven't tried, so I can't say. I don't want someone else telling me what to do.
Shocker.
And so when I work on my stuff, I pretend that I am the client and I ask myself questions and I answer them out loud, because when you answer questions in your head, you can twist them and make them sound good. But when you say them out loud, all of a sudden you're like, ooh, that's a really lame excuse,
Right.
And so just talk out loud about it and really get real with it.
That I was going to say that would help a lot with the self-awareness and the self-honesty, right? Because here's the thing I want to say about this. I think that there are valid reasons why people hold on to stuff. So if you're able to look at what is true about this, okay? So let's say, for me, this is a specific personal example. I've lost both my grandmas in the last couple of years, and both of them left me things, right? So
it's hard. It
is really hard. And so I look at this, okay, what about this do I love? Well, I love that my grandma gave it to me, right? Mm-hmm. So, but do I love the thing? And in most of the cases, they both left me beautiful things. And in most of the cases, I do. But if it's not something I love, then I ask the question, is there somebody else in the family that would love it? Do I have other things already? Just kind of so that you don't...
And would your grandmother want you to keep it if you didn't love it and if it was weighing down your life?
Exactly. That's a really good question. So just asking the questions can clarify for you, what really matters to you and why it matters to you, and is there a better solution? Sometimes for me, it's a matter of, I'm actually going to wrap this up carefully, put it away, and then when Trinity has her own home, I'll give this to her from her great-grandma. It doesn't need to be sitting right out every single day. So there are other solutions that...
And memory journal is a really good one for that. When they're really hard items to get rid of, you can take a picture of them and write about them and put them in a journal. And so then they're still living and you can remember them. And the maybe box is another really fun one. If you can't decide on something, put it in a maybe box. It can't be see-through, and commit to a date, like maybe a month out, 2 months out. And on that time, if you can remember what was in there, then you can have it. But if you can't peek inside. If you can't remember, then you didn't really want it.
Did you hear that? That one is brilliant. I love that.
It works really well. And I like to have the maybe box be opened when I come again, just so that I can be there with him and what's inside. No.
Oh, that is a great idea.
If you really do remember it, then it's fair.
There's so much here. And I would say that the piece of it that is making itself very obvious to me is releasing the guilt and the shame.
It's a big one.
Knowing that you're not alone.
The perfectionism. So the reason why my whole business model is about not striving to be perfect, but more realistic, and then build on the progress from there. Because so many times people will see a picture on Pinterest.
Oh gosh.
And they're like, I want this and they want these systems. I'm like, that's a really hard system to follow. And so they're setting themselves up for failure. Lots of times, most of my clients are perfectionists with these really complex systems that they could never maintain. And so then why try?
So that's why your solutions that stick.
Because we are talking about realistic solutions and then you can build on
for
it.
daily life.
Yeah.
I have so noticed this. There's a big difference between what looks good just in theory, but in daily life, what fits into your specific lifestyle. Your real
and what
daily
can your family
schedule.
handle? Is this a system you want your children to keep up? You are just going to be nagging them all the time. It's going to be exhausting. You're going to want to just do it yourself because that's easier. So if you really want to put systems into place that your children are going to be able to maintain too, you got to think about what can they handle and start easy. And husbands, start easy. And once you got them going on that, build from there.
Okay.
I have a lot of people hire me to come in to do chore charts. And we almost always never start there because chore charts are really, they don't succeed very often because it's easier for the parents to just do it themselves.
Yes.
So let's start with life. It's just simply cleaning up after yourself and maintaining your own life. I like to call it that because then, who left their life all over the floor? Come on, get your life together. And it's just your dishes at the table, not the pot that we all ate out of. That's a chore or a job or something.
Right, but
your plate is your life.
That.
And if you just simply focus on that and we get that down first, most of the time, parents don't even need a chore chart after that. If their kids just took care of their lives, that's all they need.
You guys know what I need to do here. I've got my hot cocoa with Dawni going for kids. I need to do like an ongoing thing for kids and have people like you come in and talk
I love
about
working with kids.
Yeah, so do I. Isn't it the best?
So great. They actually, when you do it with kids, you often train them and then they train their parents.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I can't let my kids show me up here.
Exactly. I need to hire you again. Okay, so we're going to have Stephanie's information for those of you who from Ogden to Salt Lake. And for those of you out of state, I'll put up a general site that they can go to find an organizer. If you cannot afford a professional organizer, then you can ask a friend, reach out for help. We are too close to our own stuff. It's the same reason we need a therapist, the same reason we need a life coach. We really need to bounce our ideas and brainstorm and have somebody unbiased come into the situation and help. So I know that there has been value here today because my brain's going in a million places. I'm like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this. So thank you so much. I hope your coffee was okay. You didn't even have tasty. Cheers. May your coffee be strong and your life be blessed.